right at
But
me.
the thing is,
So much.
even if he never looks up, you can still look. Number one, it's a point to focus on, and you're not
Yeah.
right. But also, I will also make eye contact with attorneys when they've asked questions. I read in one thing that you shouldn't make eye contact with the attorneys because it might be, another attorney might think that by making eye contact, you're trying to get like some, I guess like subliminal messages, and I'm like, oh brother. I don't think, maybe in like some high-powered, trial or something, but not in our court. So, if you make eye contact with either the attorney asking the question or the judge, whether the judge looks at you or not, it gives you a place to focus and, kind of keeps you from.
I think the reason, I really do think that Judge Wells does read our court reports, but I think he's reading them as we're talking.
Yeah.
Because he reads a lot of papers.
Yeah, he's flipping
He
through
really
this
looks
stuff.
like he's not paying attention, but he is because he will, like his head will snap up when
Yeah.
certain things happen. So he has the ability to read and do that, but I really think he's like reading our court reports as we're talking.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in saying he does not read them ahead of time,
Yeah,
but
I don't
he
think
is
so
looking
either.
through papers, and so he is probably looking at them during the hearing.
Yeah.
So any other ways that we might telegraph weakness unknowingly, unconsciously? So we said speaking softly, not making eye
Him
contact.
hauling around,
What?
kind of stuttering,
Yeah.
him hauling around,
Uh-huh.
like Janet.
Janet.
Oh,
sure. Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, some of those were a little obvious. What are some? What?
Rachel thought she was like, I know she was serious. I missed the beginning. Apology,
We should have really
I was
attacked
gonna say, yeah, we're being really hard on Janet. Some of Janet's were a little obvious, and that's okay. What are some maybe less obvious? Anything else y'all can think of?
Fidgeting.
Yeah, the fidgeting,
Yeah.
the fidgeting. Because that fidgeting, what does that make you think?
but they're
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
They're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go to the bathroom before I got up here. Yeah, you don't even have sense enough to go to the bathroom. Get up here. Why am I going to listen to your recommendation?
I think sometimes it would be like when you're not in agreement with CPS, I think it would be even more important to be really confident in what you're saying because
Yes.
there's a lot of weight given to what they're saying. So I think if you're in disagreement with your caseworker, probably even more important to really know what you're gonna say, know your facts and know your whys.
Yeah.
If you're gonna
Yeah.
disagree with CPS.
Be confident and speak with confidence. What did you say, Chris?
Or just standing there in silence.
Yeah.
It's not very confident.
Right. So you don't want to speak timidly like you're not sure or that you're scared. The fidgeting makes people think that you're either you can't concentrate or you're nervous so it's okay to be nervous, just don't let anyone or try your best not to convey that because it's just kind of like I'm scared to death of cats, and of course if I go to someone's house with a cat, who is the only person that cat wants anything to do with? Me, because they can just sense it, and so so you have to try to calm those nerves in some way. All right, next page. Oops, I did it again. So, what happens if you do make a mistake? Well, first of all, not every weakness or mistake is fatal, okay? So don't be too hard on yourself. You can often expound on or repair or clarify your answer later. So if you get asked a question by one attorney and you go, oh man, I just really messed that up, you're rarely questioned by only one person. So use that opportunity on the next round of questions to try to circle back to that if you can, and I would think that if the question, it gets asked again, it's even okay to kind of maybe acknowledge what you said that maybe that you weren't happy with, how you worded it or whatever, and because I mean, everyone up there is just real people, just like we are, and nobody expects us to be perfect orators and never make a mistake. So that's one thing. Don't think that a mistake is fatal. Very rarely, okay? I can think of one thing that an advocate said on the stand, which I will not repeat, but I sat there and I went, "Are you kidding me?" And it didn't, it mattered and it was important, but as I'm kind of jumping ahead, you are only one piece of the puzzle, so do not carry all of the weight of a decision on your shoulders, okay? So, I have on here example Diana's case. Diana, in fact, called me today and said, "I really wish I could be there tonight. I really feel like this would be very helpful to me." And I said, "Diana, you are phenomenal at testifying in court." So when I have her name on here, it's not because of a mistake she made, but she felt like some of what she said, she felt unprepared one time for some questions, and she was able to make it up the next time. She also I just lost my train of thought on that. There was something else that happened with her. Okay, I'm going to come back to that when it comes back to me, because it was a very good example. And I didn't write it down because I really
Because you thought
think I was
Diana's
gonna-
case was gonna make that?
because I was like, how am I not going to remember that? Anyway, recovery.
You're gonna talk about her going outside.
Well, but that wasn't a mistake, if I can tell them
Oh.
that. It was
A good thing.
an awesome thing she did, so I'll just tell you since Janet brought it up. So again, I can't go into all the details of the case and why this is so significant, but she had to go sit outside. It was a trial. She had to go sit outside during testimony. Even though CASA can technically be in, I stayed in, but they just preferred that nobody could say that she heard this or that and it influenced any of her answers. So right before we went into this trial, Mom's attorney bombarded both of us separately, and we didn't know that she had even spoken to the other person, and said, "We're going to ask for a monitored return." I mean, we were like this close to termination. "We're going to ask for a monitored return." And I was like, "What?" "And we want you to agree." And I'm like, "I'm not going to agree." And she goes, "You haven't even heard what my plan is." I said, "I don't have to hear your plan because, like, this is where we are at this point. Like, no, we can't just jump to a monitored return." So she had done this to Diana as well. And so, of course, Diana was like, "Oh, what," caught off guard, but she didn't have time to talk to either one of us because we had to get back to the hearing. So Diana went out there, and then when she got called to the stand, she was asked if she would be in favor of a monitored return, because the department is in favor, where it's just like a week before their goal was still termination. There's a lot of backstory to that case. And so, "Surely you're in, why wouldn't you be in favor?" And she said, "Well," and if y'all know Diana, she's just like so low key, and I wish I could have recorded that, because that is like perfect court testimony, what she gave that day. She said, "Well, I think it was the attorney, when you asked me about that right before the hearing started. I was so shocked that I just wasn't expecting that. I was very shocked and taken back. She said, so while I was out there in the rotunda, I made a list of all the reasons that I would not be in favor of a monitored return.
Go Diana.
And then it was like, so then obviously it wasn't the mom's attorney at that point because the attorney said, well, would you read them to us? And she sat there and she had a list. I was just like,
Go
I
girl.
mean, how many people would have thought to have done that? I mean, I'm not saying none of us would, but I don't think I would have. And it was just amazing. But then another time in the case, because that was not, this was the, she felt like she was very unprepared, or she had put something in her court report that turned out not to be 100% accurate. And it's really, I mean, I guess if we wanted to get very technical, we could say, yeah, she maybe could have done a little more research on it or whatever, but it wasn't like something slanderous or whatever. So, but of course, the mom's attorney just hammered her and hammered her. But you know what? She stayed calm, she stayed cool, and she just answered the questions as honestly as she could. And if she was asked, well, did it never occur to you that mom could have a roommate that's not a paramour? And she said, no, it didn't. You know,
Yeah.
and the thing is, even though, and of course Diana afterwards, she was just, oh my gosh, I said, Diana, you do not realize, even though you're not happy that she was able to pick that out, you did not come across as uncredible. You did not come across as, oh my gosh, she did not do her homework and she had something in there that was not 100% accurate. I said, because not only that, we had all your prior testimony also, which shows that you're very thorough and you're very, you know, and so, and just remember, recovery is attainable. If you feel you messed up, don't dwell on it and beat yourself up. Remember, the calling attorney will get to redirect you afterwards and can clean up whatever damage may have happened. And again, you're one piece of the puzzle. Don't take full responsibility for the outcome. Even if it wasn't your best day testifying in court, many, many factors influence the judge's decision. So don't carry that around with you and be, you know, beating yourself up over it. Okay, strategies for success. These are going to go pretty fast. And again, a lot of these are going to seem very obvious, but sometimes we forget. Sometimes the obvious is not as obvious as we think. All right, appear and behave professionally on and off the stand. Example? Give me an example.
I can give one from the only time I've been in court, and there were a lot of CASA workers sitting together, but then I think there were CPS people behind us who were suddenly really loud that one time, and I think the judge kind of went after him, or the bailiff did, or somebody, and it was like, well, we were being professional, but other people were
Yeah.
not.
I went to CPS office to a permanency hearing, and I walked in, and CPS announced they moved my child last night. And I reacted and was called unprofessional. And I did react. I mean, you know, this child's been moved 13 times in 7 years, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I lost my cool.
Well, and while, of course, we always want to strive to be professional, we're also human. We're also, so again, so talking to where we have to get shushed. I mean, I think we've all been shushed, or most of us, if we've been in court enough, maybe.
Oh, maybe their phone was on it.
Oh, now
I
that,
think that was it.
yeah, that's really bad. But even the shushing, I think maybe I've been shushed once and I don't like that, and so I, you know. But what are some other things that might be considered unprofessional.
Inappropriate clothes.
Mhm.
Um,
Gum. I'll sit and I'll chew my gum before because I just want, and I remember one time, it was Brianna. I don't know who else was there, but I definitely remember Brianna. I don't know if you were there that day, Cora. And I had my gum and they called us faster than I expected. And I was like, I yanked it and I had found something in my purse and I'm like, oh! So I was like, I'm not going up there with gum in my mouth. I managed to get it out and put it in a piece of paper really fast. But anything else? Yeah, there are a lot of things, but
I think the words we use, to just make sure the words are professional and not slang or.
good point. Trying to use more professional language.
Yes, instead of yeah, even things like that.
Yes.
Are more professional.
Good point. Okay, stand without fidgeting. Okay, we've talked about that. We definitely got a good dose of that. Dress professionally. So Walker County is going to be back in person soon, so it'll be interesting to see. I know in Trinity and San Jacinto, I feel like attorneys included. I feel like
It's a little downer.
mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm standing up there
This is overdressed.
dressing. This is overdressed sometimes.
We're
But
gonna do
I
what's
would-
right though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd rather stand up there looking better than the attorney than
Yeah.
looking worse.
I
And,
remember Janet said in training, you want to look more like the attorney than the.
yeah, but
the
you might have
plaintiff,
to change
but
that.
Yeah. Thinking you want to look more like the judge if you're going to be in Trinity County.
Yeah.
There's one of those attorneys in Trinity County, she should be ashamed of herself coming into court like that.
Oh, in Trinity, oh, I know who you're talking about.
It's
I saw-
shocking.
I saw one in San Jacinto in tennis shoes. She had a skirt on, and she had white tennis shoes with her skirt. I was like,
That ain't
I
nothing.
hope you have a broken foot or something, because why would,
Yeah.
like,
I know.
yeah, it's bad.
Ankle surgery.
It's bad. I, see,
She might have had ankle
yeah,
surgery.
she should have wore the boot, because then we all would have known, but she was wearing tennis shoes.
Right.
I'm gonna have to put some bling on mine.
A boot is completely different than, and even if you had to dress a little slightly different because of your boot, I think people would recognize that.
understand.
Yeah. But yeah, dressing professionally, we can debate whether it's right or not, but the fact is, people make judgments about us based on the way we look. If our hair looks messy, if our clothes are wrinkled, if we're wearing
Flip-flops.
capris and slide-ons, which I saw an attorney wear one time. Like that attorney, she's a great attorney. I like her personally, but every time I see her come to court that way, I have a little less respect for her. And we don't want people thinking about that about us, because then what does that ultimately translate?
Not professional.
To the children.
So ultimately, it translates to what? Not trusting us, or not taking us seriously?
I don't know if it's still this way, but I had to go to federal court in Beaumont on a jury summons. And the men, if they're not wearing a jacket when they come in, they give you this jacket. You have to put it on. The
Yeah.
women had to wear dresses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's just being a juror.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we kind of touched on this, answer out loud. Sometimes it starts to feel almost like a conversation during court, and we kind of sometimes even forget, like, the court reporter has to be able to hear you. Don't be afraid to ask for a question to be repeated, even if it's just a stall tactic to give you time to think. But maybe you really, for whatever reason, you zoned out a little bit, or it just didn't quite click or compute. Don't be afraid to ask. It's better to ask that it be repeated than give some kind of silly answer that maybe wasn't your best answer just because you didn't quite get it all. If you don't understand the question, state that. I don't understand. But don't help the opposing side, such as if you're asked, does Johnny go to Dr. Adams for therapy? Just say no. But don't say, no, Johnny goes to Dr. Ball. Or Bell, whatever I wrote here. Just
no.
Yeah, just answer the question. And again, if you're not sure, like because they're asking you the wrong, if they say the wrong name and you're like, why are they asking me about Dr. Adam? I don't know. So you can either just say no. And then they can go, well, I thought he goes to Dr. Adams. And then you say, or just keep saying no, or whatever. Yeah. So again, be honest, say I don't know or I don't remember. If you really don't remember, it is much more important to be honest and just say that than to give an incorrect answer because you're under oath. So we don't want to do that. If there is an objection as you're giving an answer, stop and let all that get sorted out, and then you'll know whether to continue or if they're going to move on with a different question. Avoid being combative. Stay cool. Use a calm, neutral voice. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't shut. Yes, we want to be, right. And we want to be neutral, a calm, neutral voice as much as possible, but that doesn't,
Ooh.
How did you do, Janet?
It's all that swaying.
Yeah.
We're using our calm, neutral voices.
yes, from staying calm.
Right out on the street around.
Yeah, do we even have stairs?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are, but I don't know if
Do we have
we-
stairs? There has to be stairs in the
There has to
building.
be.
Yeah, the whole block. The
Oh.
streetlights are even out.
I'm
Right there.
Okay, well, I'm just going to keep going. We might not be able to get to our role playing, but oh well. Anyway, what I was gonna say is it's okay, like if you're very passionate, it's okay to show, Lyle, it's okay to show like
Yeah.
some emotion
Wow.
and show,
There we go.
that you, like, that you really care, like it's okay. It's not, you don't have to be up there like a robot and not show. But especially if it's getting to be something heated, especially, you do want to remain as calm. Because again, I think that's kind of sound like a broken record. It all goes back to being credible and
I might
being,
have responded differently than he did. If they told me my child had been moved an inappropriate amount of times, I might tears just might start coming, but I would stay calm. You know.
In not being competitive too.
and again, again.
When you get physical, you're really combative.
Yeah.
But if you're just disagreeing or showing your exasperation or something, you're not necessarily being combative.
Right.
But
You
at
disagree.
the same time, you can correct that later if
Mhm.
you
Yes,
have the respect and integrity to do so.
exactly.
You can correct the situation.
Right, good point. So, again, tell the truth. And again, this is where it almost sounds a little contradictory to where I said, like, don't help the opposing side. Because in a way, I hate to even use the word opposing side, because what I wrote here is the point is not for us to win. Our role is to honestly advocate for the best interest of the child. So it's not so much about, well, I don't want to help you. No, we just want to be honest. But sometimes, especially if you get an attorney that, like the one in San Jacinto last week, that is kind of maybe not being on the up and up or whatever. No, I'm not going to help her because I don't want to get in a situation where she's going to twist my words either. So, and then finally, what are some things you can do to get even better? Watch other advocates testify and critique their performance, and don't feel bad. Sit there and take note of what they did well and what they didn't do well. You don't have to tell that person. You don't have to say, hey, you really stunk up there, but, take note of it. Talk to other advocates and share your courtroom experiences. Ask for feedback after you testify, just like when Shelley did that with me. She's like, hey, I know, and so we talked about it. Of course, I had already nudged her, and so she already knew what she needed to do differently, but we still talked about it afterwards. Assess your performance and document what you did well and what you want to improve. Practice speaking in front of a mirror and or speaking into a tape recorder. And then take note of whether you say things such as, you know, and with what frequency. Because we all do that to a certain extent. And so we're not saying you have to be so polished that you never say, but just kind of take note, do you do it a lot? Do you do it enough that you need to be more aware of it and work on it? And of course, finally, be patient with yourself. We all continue to improve no matter how long we've been testifying in court. So, what we're going to do for the last few minutes is you guys can get into little groups of, let's see, how many do we have now? 13 people. So we can get into like groups of 2 or 3 or kind of however you want to do it. Just small groups. And here is a case study if you want to read it or if you just want to go off the cuff like Janet and I did. And y'all can practice. Somebody can be the questioner, somebody can be the advocate, somebody can be the observer.
Okay.
Yeah, they're different, so you might want to choose one, or if you get in a group with somebody, well, some of them are different.
Was it really?
Was that your case?
So far. Oh, okay.
Sorry, that's fine, it's fine.
I usually drive myself, but
Yeah,
I
I
had
know.
the football play today.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got it.
So, just get in a group of at least 3. At least 3.
Anybody need
And
a
somebody
group?
be the questioner. And if you don't have to read the whole case study if you don't want to. If you want to just make up your answers as you go along.
There's 4.
You just can't seem to do the math very well.
Well, if you want to
really-
do you 3 and then those 4, or however.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
It'll be good for you.
yeah. You could be the observer and you just critique what they do.
Yeah.
Oh, he's good at
That
that.
group and this group, or this group.
having me in your group,
No.
nobody could do worse than I did.
There are 3.
Well, I'm just
Case studies
saying,
that
I'm really not involved.
There are 3 different case studies. Yeah, so.
Be best if I-
Whatever y'all wanna do.
So we can try to make it testify.
Right.
Okay, we got strong.
All right, okay. We got our, well,
This is a child,
This is a
sexual
show.
abuse
okay.
case.
Give that.
Youngest child.
Or just make up questions, and you don't even have to know the names. Just make up the answers you want them to be.
So someone in your group
You know.
needs to be a questioner.
Lois, you probably do the questioning because you've been a part of that. You know what questions to ask. You know, just ask questions about.
Wow. Which one you got six?
Reverse roads first.
No, this is just background knowledge. If you want it to use any
Yeah, I
questions,
know what
but
I'm
if
looking
people
at.
come up with questions.